going to go ahead and we're going to start to get things kicked off here because we do have a lot of information that we want to share today. One of the things that I will call out, team, is while we're on today's webinar, please feel free to utilize the Q&A or the chat area there at the bottom of the Zoom screen to input any questions you may have for us throughout the course of today's webinar. And we'll do our best to try to address those while we're on the call today. Hopefully we'll have a few minutes for Q&A at the end. But if we're not able to address any questions on the call live on the webinar today, we'll definitely follow up as necessary for those people there. So again, thank you for joining us. My name is Kyle Lee. I am our Senior Construction Solution Specialist here at ATG USA, and I'm joined by my friend and colleague on the Autodesk Construction Solutions side of the world, Miss Lisa Stine. And today we're going to be talking about the Autodesk Construction Solutions and why electrical subcontractors need it, why it's so important for electrical subcontractors. Let's take a look at today's agenda for why electrical subcontractors need Autodesk Construction Solutions. And so we're going to be touching on a few primary points here. The first is that ability to have a clear single source of truth or a common data environment that the project team is utilizing. And again, ensuring that everyone has access to the most up-to-date information. Another thing we're going to be talking about is controlled file sharing and how we can accomplish controlled file sharing within the Autodesk Construction Cloud itself. We'll also be talking about visibility into issue responsibility and why that's important for teams when they're out in the field. And then we're going to be talking a little bit about bid management, bid performance with the use of BidBoard Pro. And then we're also going to be discussing work in place tracking with Assemble. So we're taking a little bit of a shift today with our webinar, and we are including a couple of products that are not actually a part of the Autodesk Construction Cloud solutions as they stand today, but they are a part of the Autodesk Construction Solutions portfolio of products that they can provide there. So I think it's very important, again, as we're talking to subcontractors, in this case, electrical subcontractors, but any subcontractors, to make sure that they're very well aware of the entire breadth of the Autodesk Construction Solutions portfolio and how they could be leveraged throughout the course of your projects there. So let's go ahead and get in, let's dive in, let's get started. So first, we're going to be talking about clear single source of truth here, that common data environment, and why that's so important. And the main reason is because construction is a collaborative process, but it's still very much fragmented in many ways. We see different teams that are responsible for different aspects of the project. And many of these teams are using a number of different solutions to complete and provide their deliverables that are associated with the project. We see that a lot of times teams are communicating just over email and sending out newest versions of construction data or project files, things of that nature. And the only problem with that is, how are we able to really know and track what is the latest version? And also ensure that all of our project partners have access to that latest version of the information, not just a select handful that may have been on an email list there. Okay, so that's why we really want to talk about a clear single source of truth. And so before we jump in and take a look at how we can accomplish that, or how that's accomplished in the Autodesk Construction Cloud, I want to talk with Lisa a little bit about some of the negative consequences when we don't have a single source of truth in place, as well as some of the positive outcomes that can be achieved by leveraging a common data environment. So Lisa?
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. All right, so when we don't have a CDE or a single source of truth, we're often missing key information and deliverable dates, and that's because we're very siloed and we're not consistently and collaboratively working together. We also, because of that, we'll see a lot of schedule and budget overages because, again, we're not all in sync. We're not all moving together. And so we're going to see a lot of repetitive work. We're going to see a lot of rework. And then there's also the potential that we're working off of obsolete information. But what we would see if we were working in a collaborative space is that projects are going to be completed on time. And that's, again, because we're all privy to the key project information, right? We're all working together. We'll also see a consistent flow of project evolution. Because we're all working off of the same information, because we all have insight to the same parts of the project is going to have a consistent upwards trajectory. We're not taking 10 steps back as we move from different phases of the project. We'll also have confidence in project information, right? That everyone's working off of the same key data, and we'll win more work. We'll have a better brand and a better reputation because we're not taking steps backward every time we, move through the different life cycles of the project.
Absolutely. That's great. That's great. So really quickly, let's take a quick look inside of the Autodesk Construction Cloud solutions. And really what I'm pointing out here is how this clear single source of truth is able to be utilized across the project, regardless of which module team members might be utilizing and accessing the information from. Again, the Autodesk Construction Cloud is a platform that's really intended to be leveraged from the outset of project design. But in many cases, and especially in the case of subcontractors like yourselves, we understand that you may not be getting involved in the project until after design has been completed. And we really don't want to lose any of that rich metadata that may be associated with the design and the design files that have been stored there. So we can see right here on the left-hand side of the screen, this is just a screenshot from within the Autodesk Construction Cloud and the Docs module. This is our document management module. On the right-hand side, we can see that this is a screenshot within the Autodesk Build module on the Autodesk Construction Cloud. And what I've noted here and what I've pulled up is I've pulled up the files area in both of these modules. And as you can see in the screenshots, the entirety of the photo structure and the project files that are being saved and stored there are exactly the same. Okay, so again, making sure that everyone has access to the entirety of the project data based upon their roles and based upon their given task on the project is going to be important, but knowing that we can store everything in one centralized location and know that we can grant people access to that information as is necessary for their role is tremendously important. Okay, very, very important that, again, we're able to keep everything right here. You can also see in some of these screenshots here that we have different files that are stored here, and we can also see different versions. So as new information is uploaded, we're able to store the different versions and even can reference back to additional versions, and possibly even depending upon the file types, whether they're PDF files, possibly Revit files or CAD files, we can also look at comparisons between those versions to see what may have changed as well. So again, that clear single source of truth is massively important for success on your projects there. So next, we're going to be talking about controlled file sharing. Okay, and the reason why this is so important, and the reason it is because we've got to know that we can give access to the project documents or the project information to those folks that are needing access to it. But maybe that doesn't mean that that's everyone on the project. Okay, so with the Autodesk Construction Cloud, we do have the ability to manage and control our file sharing in a couple of different ways here. Okay, and we're going to be talking about that in just a moment. But before we talk about and take a look at some of the different methods of being able to control your file sharing within the Construction Cloud, let's again take a quick look at some of the negative consequences when we don't have that capability and what some of the positive outcomes are when we're able to implement a solution that provides that level of control.
Thank you, Kyle. All right, so negative consequences when we're not controlling file sharing. Well, people see information that they shouldn't, right? We either tend to send things off in a mass regard so that we're just kind of, umbrella sending things out, and that ends up with people getting information that they shouldn't have visualization into. It also, though, could lead to, okay, we don't want to do that, so we have to send things in a very siloed effort, and we tend to forget to include people on key information that they need to be aware of. So that's kind of a double-edged sword. Additionally, if we're sending things out via a link, often those links don't expire. So maybe I just want to give somebody access to something for a week. I don't have the ability oftentimes to just limit it to a week, right? They've got, complete access to it, and I need to either move it so it doesn't exist anymore for them or do something else. So that's kind of a headache. But if we are able to control who we're sending information out to, then we can share with just the people that we want to, right? We can share with the stakeholders that only need to know about that particular piece of information, and we can share for just as long as we want to. So if I want to just share something for a couple of days, that's the only amount of time that this person needs access to this information, then I can choose that. Or if I want to share something for a year, then I can have that option as well. We also are going to share in a way that people are going to see it. So often if I send something through an email, it might get lost in someone's junk box. I might send something that's even too large to send, right? And it gets stuck in my outbox and I don't even know that it hasn't been sent to this person. So if we're using a platform like Kyle and I are talking about, then we're going to be sending in a way that we are going to have assurance that the recipients are going to see this information.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you, Lisa. All right, so let's take a quick look at a screen share of how we can be able to better control our file sharing within the Autodesk Construction Cloud. We're going to be looking at 3 primary methods for controlled file sharing here within the platform. So first of all, we're going to be taking a look here at the way that we can control file sharing just by setting up people's permissions on the project. Okay, we have the ability to set up permissions either at a company level, a role level, or an individual user level. Okay, and so one of the things that's important here is that if we can set up roles that are, or set up permissions based on roles that are being applied to the users on the project, that means that we can also utilize those roles and even possibly utilize that particular folder structure on future projects without having to go in and manipulate the permissions every time. So the next way that we can control file sharing is we can control file sharing at the folder level. So if I needed to share the contents of an entire folder with an individual, I can use the share feature and capability. The same way with an individual file. And so right here, you can see that we can share with team members on the project or to anyone that we send this link to. And we can set an expiration for that link, just like what Lisa was talking about a few moments ago. Okay, and so the third way that we can control file sharing is through the creation of transmittals within our projects on the Autodesk Construction Cloud. So we can easily come in and create a new transmittal. We can select all of the documentation that needs to be included in that transmittal. As you can see, I'm selecting several different files from multiple folders on the project here to create that transmittal. So then we give the transmittal a name. We can then also input who the transmittal is going to as well on the project. So we can do that by a username or by a role or by a company if we wanted to. And so we just select those individuals there, and then we can see also, what's been included in that transmittal. And so when we hit that to create that transmittal gets sent out in the team members that were identified as being recipients. They're going to receive an email notification stating that they have a new transmittal that's been issued to them, and then they can jump into the Autodesk Construction Cloud and go in and view that transmittal within the docs area there. You also have the ability, once you go into the transmittal, to potentially download those files as a zip file, or a zip file that comes into your computer that's a little bit lighter weight, but then you still have access to all of the files that were included in that transmittal. Okay, so that wraps up our discussion around controlled file sharing. And so now let's talk a little bit about visibility into issue responsibility. And also, one of the things that I want to call out here is as we're talking about issue responsibility and being able to track, who has issues assigned to them, when those issues might be due, things of that nature. It's also important to understand that within the BIM 360, within the Autodesk Build module, you do have the ability for teams such as yourselves to be able to complete punch lists or checklists out on a project site, whether we're talking about daily observation punch lists, it could be safety punch lists, or possibly even equipment installation punch lists. But what's really unique is that we have the ability, as we're out there on site and we're completing those punch lists, that we can create issues as a part of that checklist or punch list, so that now we have issues that are assigned to team members, so that we can get those issues into the system more quickly, and also respond to those issues and get those closed out more quickly by making sure that those are assigned to the responsible parties here. So let's talk a little bit about what we can be looking at, negative consequences when we don't have great visibility into our issues that have been assigned for a project, and then some of the positive outcomes when we do.
Thanks, Kyle. All right. So negatives, right? Issues don't get resolved. If we don't have issues in a common place, I don't have insight into who's responsible for what. And therefore we don't have, we're not holding those people accountable because we just don't know really what's going on. There's no transparency into who's working on what and what the status is. And that becomes very problematic when, let's say that Kyle has 10 issues that he needs to pick up and my work is dependent on those, but I don't know that Kyle has those issues in his court. In fact, I don't even know that those are issues. I might continue going on with my work only to find out later that my work is now erroneous because we needed to have revisions before I did it, right? So that just leads to a tremendous amount of problems and a lot more rework, right? Because we don't have that visibility. But if we do have insights into project issues, then we can clearly understand where we are in terms of issue closure. And we're also aware of what is going on. We also have confidence that the appropriate revisions are being made. I don't just need to send an email or see someone on the job site and say, hey, I need you to pick this up. And then, that's as far as my confidence in the issue resolution goes, right? I have visibility and transparency into where we are in the progression of those issues as well as their closure. And then with all of that, we can hold people accountable. Again, going back to Kyle not picking up his issues, if I hop in and see, look, man, like you haven't done anything in 2 months, right? I can hold him accountable for that. And I can understand where we are in terms of our project and what we need to be working on. And that adds a tremendous amount of value to successful project outcome and completion.
100%, Lisa, you're absolutely right. And I've come to find out that Kyle guy causes a lot of problems on projects from time to time.
Really does,
well, so really quickly, we're going to look at how we can have a greater sense of visibility into our issues within products on the Autodesk Construction Cloud. And so we're taking a look at this from within the Docs module, but we also have our issues within the Build module as well. So this could be completed in either one of those modules on the web interface here. So let's take a quick look. So right here, we can go to our Issues tab, again, in either one of those modules, and we can see that we have a complete list of all of the issues that have been created on our project. We can see who those issues have been assigned to, whether it's an individual on the project or potentially a company as well, as you can see right there. We can also see the title for the issue, as well as the issue ID number just to the right of the title as well. We can see the status of the issue right there. And if we click, we can open up the details associated with that issue right there. We can see any screenshots that may have been inputted, or maybe photos that were taken out on the project site as associated with the issue. And that's all tied into the issue right there. And again, we also, with the reporting tools that are available, we can also schedule reports to come out on a regular basis to help us track issues. And we can even sort and filter those reports so that maybe we're only looking for issues that are in a status of open or in review or pending. Maybe we don't want to look at any of our closed or our voided issues. We can definitely set those reports up in a way so that we're only looking at the information that's pertinent to us. And speaking about setting up those reports and making them very configurable, you could also set a report up that's only going to pull out issues that have been assigned to you individually on the project as well. So very, very beneficial from that standpoint. And again, giving you a lot of ways that you can continue to have that clear visibility into issues on the project and the responsible parties that need to be responding to those. Okay. So real quick, we're just going to take a look at a couple of slides talking about the primary Autodesk Construction Cloud modules that we've discussed so far today. And then we're going to turn it over to Lisa to take a look at some of the Autodesk Construction Solution products that we have to talk about today as well. So today we've talked about Autodesk Docs. Docs is that common data environment, and Docs is kind of that base point or starting point for all projects. Any project that you create in the Autodesk Construction Cloud automatically has Docs activated, because again, that's where we're housing and controlling our different documents. It's where we're able to manage and view the different document versions. And we also have the ability to create document review and approval workflows, as well as being able to create document transmittals within the Docs module. Also today, we've been talking a little bit about Autodesk Build. Autodesk Build, again, we can create and manage those issues within Autodesk Build, but this is really the module that's suited for project management and field management, whether we're talking about, again, issues, whether we're talking about punch lists or checklists that are being created and completed out on site. Also the ability to manage RFIs and submittal processes, as well as cost management on your project. So some really, really key tools within that Autodesk Build module that are truly intended for that project management and field management portion of the process there, as well as getting ready to move to handover for your clients. Okay. And so now let's talk for just a few minutes about some of the additional Autodesk Construction Solution modules that we feel can really be impactful for subcontractors, especially electrical subcontractors, but really any subcontractors for that matter. So we're going to jump right in and talk for just a few minutes about Building Connected.
Thanks, Kyle. All right. So if you've not heard of Building Connected was acquired by Autodesk a couple of years ago and really has helped to revolutionize the pre-con process, specifically in the realm of bidding and qualification and risk management. So today we are solely going to focus on the Bid Board Pro part of Building Connected, but just so that you're aware, Building Connected is comprised of Building Connected Pro, which is really focused on general contractors and owners, basically allows those folks to manage all of the bids that they're sending out for the different aspects of their project, and then obviously give owners insight into that as the project is underway. Bid Board Pro, again, is what we're going to focus on today. And this is the subcontractor piece, right? This is where we can connect with leading general contractors. We can get leads on new bid opportunities, and we can manage the entirety of your bid process from a single place, which is going to help to reduce the reliance on whiteboards and Excel and emails and all of those very siloed and disjointed methods. The other piece of Building Connected is TradeTab. You might come in contact with TradeTab because general contractors and owners use it as a way to qualify and do a risk assessment on subcontractors that they might choose to bring into a project. So you might come into contact it with that realm. But in this conversation today, we're going to be focused on Bid Board Pro. After I do one more slide, we're actually going to go into the platform itself. So we'll take a deeper look in just a second. But Kyle, if you want to go to the next slide. I am also going to go over Assemble today. Assemble was also acquired by Autodesk a couple of years ago, and it is a really powerful tool that really helps kind of change the way that contractors look at design information and makes it immediately usable for pre-con workflows, things like model conditioning, things like quantity takeoff, things like model-based estimating. So today we're going to focus a little bit on conditioning the model, but we're also going to understand how, when we are out in the field and we are constructing something, I can understand what has been installed and what is still yet to go, right? So what I'm going to call work in place tracking. That's going to be our focus today in Assemble. I am going to show you everything off of my computer, but I just want you to be aware of that everything I'm doing on my computer in Assemble can also be done on my iPad. So a lot of the workflows I'm going to go through today are field workflows, right? Things I would really encourage you to utilize in the field, but just know I will be on my computer, but you can do them in the field. Okay. And Kyle, I guess if you want to stop sharing.
There we go.
I will go ahead and share. And while I'm doing that, I do just want everyone to know that I actually come from industry. I'm not just a stranger demoing this platform for you. So I'm going to talk about these platforms as I have utilized them in the industry as a structural engineer. And of course, as I'm going through this, if there are questions, please put them in the Q&A and we can follow up with them after I get through this. Okay, so Kyle, I want to just make sure that you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Awesome. All right. Also, we are going to start in Bid Board Pro. Again, Bid Board Pro is how we manage our bids, right? It's how we look at them in a single space. It's how we understand where we are in terms of progressing them, understanding if we're bidding on something. If we're talking to the general contractor, we have questions, we can do that in here. This is where we're holding files that pertain to those different bids. We're doing all of that in here. And the really nice part of doing all of that in a single space is that we are going to be provided with analytics and insights to help us make good decisions on who we want to bid with in the future and maybe replicate key information that we used in the bidding process previously. Okay, so what will happen is in this space, I'm looking at all of the opportunities that have come in for my organization. You could certainly filter this if you are working for an organization that not only does electrical contracting, but also does mechanical or plumbing, right? I could choose to filter only bids that pertain to the group that I'm working in, which might be electrical. So know that you can kind of silo it more. I don't want to say silo, but you can kind of filter this a little bit to make it a little easier for you to see what is in your court, right? What is in your group. And so what we see here are bids that my organization has. We are in the undecided tab, which means that we have not made a decision on whether or not we are going to proceed with bidding on these projects or not. They're just undecided. So bids can come in a couple of ways. I could manually create a bid. So now that life is kind of resuming, maybe I'm out and about and I hear about an opportunity, I could go ahead and I could manually enter a bid. I could put the project name in, I could put who's the GC, I could put all of the due dates, all of this information in here. If I get a hold of project files, I can put all of this stuff in here. Creating this is going to build a bid out for me. And in fact, I've done that with this one down here. You can see that it's designated as a manual bid. That means I created it. We also can bring bids in from forwarding them, right? So you might have all of your bids go to this email address. You can copy that and your bids will automatically come in. So let's say you receive an opportunity from ScanScout, right? That will be forwarded in from this email address and that bid will automatically populate in here. So any files that came in from there, any project information, due dates, RFI dates, walkthroughs, all of that good stuff will automatically be poured into your bid here. And that row will be built out automatically. What else will come through in this space is just visibility into the due date, the project size, the location, right? Who the client is, and any tags that you want to add. You might want to add tags if you just want to filter this information more, right? Maybe you've got 1,000 bids in here. It's very overwhelming. We might want to add tags to filter it more. You can also see that as I hover over these things, we can change these things. So if a due date changes, if the location of the project was erroneous and we need to change it, we can do those things. We're not set in stone. We also can comment with each other. This is huge because this is how we communicate as a team, right? This is how we collaborate as a team. Maybe I'm looking at this opportunity. I'm still I need to do a little bit more due diligence to see if it's something that we want to proceed with. I might leave a comment in here and say, team, I'm going to have an answer by end of week. And people will know that that is where we are with that decision for that bid, right? So if a new bid comes in though, we want to make sure that we assign it to somebody. So I'm going to click on this bid here. If I click on it, it is going to open up here on my right-hand side, just a little bit of a window, but I can certainly expand that to view the entire opportunity. This is where I would see all the project due dates. Again, there's a pencil next to them. So if the job walk date changes, I can change that. I can see general information. This is all the stuff that the GC is going to be filling out. So this is just my demo environment, which is why there's not a lot in here. But this is stuff that's going to come over when the bid is automatically put in here from forwarding to your email address. You also might be able to see what architect is involved. Have we worked with this architect before? Do we have a good, relationship with them? Could that help us win this bid, right? This is really great information to know. This is information that, again, the GC is providing you. If you want to help to scope out and see if this is something that you guys can take on, do you have the correct resources for this? We also have internal information over here. This is private to your organization. No one else would see this, but how many hours do we think this project will take? What's our probability of winning? When do we want to follow up, right? Do we have the resources? What do the resources look like? Is this something that's feasible for us? So this is just another nice way to collaborate collectively as a team. Now, if this was a brand new opportunity, what we would want to do is assign this to somebody on our team. So you can see my face is there. This means that I have been assigned this opportunity, and that provides that accountability, right? That I'm now responsible for deciding on whether or not we're going to proceed with this bid. But if this was a brand new opportunity, nobody would be assigned to it. And so I would just choose somebody from my team to be held accountable for it. And then now that's in their court, right? They need to decide if we're declining or we're bidding. Okay, so we've done all of this. The next thing that we would want to do is decide if we are bidding or if we are not going to bid. These commitments are not set in stone. If you decide to bid on this and then you have an internal conversation and say, actually, we can't, you can always change, revise the status of this bid. Okay, so, but for this instance, I'm going to say we're bidding on it. Now I have the opportunity to add in private tracking information if I want to. This is just specific to your organization. No one else will see this except the folks that work for your group. You can add that in if you want to. You don't have to. If you don't, you're going to hit save. And now we see the due date has showed up. We've accepted it, right? So now if I hop into the accepted tab here, I'm going to see that project. So we have moved from the undecided bucket to the accepted bucket, right? From here, I might click into the opportunity again, and any files that the general contractor sent over will be in here. These are what I can then download to do my takeoff, right? Maybe I'm leveraging Assemble to do a takeoff. Maybe I'm leveraging Autodesk Takeoff to do a takeoff. You can also do takeoffs in here, right? So I'm looking at the information though associated with this opportunity, and that is going to help me to make an informed bid on this opportunity. If I have questions for the general contractor, I can message them through this platform. Okay, it's only available for bids that were automatically pulled through here. And that's because the general contractor needs to be using Building Connected to be able to message with you in here. But if that's the case, you can send messages back and forth. This is also very helpful because you will be able to say, look, I sent a message to you on Tuesday. And if you don't hear back, you kind of have that evidence, right, that you did reach out to that person. So from here, once I have looked at the information, I have made an educated bid, I'm going to put it in here. I'm going to send it to the general contractor. If I want to CC anybody else on my organization, I can change the subject if I want to, but it's just going to be the name of the bid. And then I can put a message in here. Right. And if I want to add any additional information, breakouts, any kind of physical proposal, I can attach that in here. Once I preview and send it, I will be prompted to choose a follow-up date to reach out to that general contractor again. Very helpful, because if I haven't heard from that person, it's going to remind me that, hey, you sent this bid a while ago, you haven't heard back on an outcome. Let's reach out and just check in. Okay, so I'm not going to send this, but let's pretend that I did. Once I send this, it's going to go into the submitted bucket. So again, we've gone from undecided to accepted to submitted. In submitted, I can see what the amount of the proposal was that I sent in, when I submitted it, and again, that follow-up date that I was prompted to choose when I submitted the bid, right? So from here, I'm just waiting to get feedback from the general contractor. Did we get chosen or not? What I will do, we'll just X out of that. I will just choose an outcome when I hear back. Did we win? Did we lose? Is there some other situation? We want to make sure that we choose the right outcome, because we do have analytics and insights in here that are going to be very helpful for us in bidding future projects, right? So I might say that I won. If I win, it's going to tell me how we've been doing so far this year, right? And it's going to move into the one bucket. So I can hop in here. This is where we can start having internal conversation. What size crew do we think we need to have? What do we think the estimated duration of this will be? All of that good information, again, is privatized for you. When you're done with this, we'll just archive it. Nothing that gets archived is deleted. Everything goes in here. So if you decline to bid, that's going to be in here too. And you can look at this information by just turning on these different toggles. And that's essentially the entire process of bid management. So a couple of other things that I just want to show you in here. There is a calendar function. So you can look at everything that your team is responsible for, and you can see all of the different events, whether it's job walks or when RFIs due, all that good stuff. If this gets really, really built out, you might just choose to look at opportunities that you are responsible for. This also can sync up to your external calendar. So if you feel more comfortable looking at this in Gmail or Outlook, you certainly can do that. Another place that I want to take us to is analytics. So this is going to tell you how you've been performing as an organization, both last year and this year. So what's your hit rate? What's the total amount of bids that you've won? And I really like this visualization that breaks down how many bids we have in each of the 4 respective buckets that we looked at earlier. Who we're really winning with, what estimators from our team are doing really, really, really well, right? Who's winning work for us. And then the last piece that I want to look at in here is reports. So reports basically takes your opportunities and allows you to build out a custom report. So this could be really helpful if I say, okay, I want to pull all of my electrical bids in one space and I want to look at specific information about them. So let's say that, we previously won a rewiring project that was 20,000 square foot in this factory or facility. And we won that and we did really well. And we already spent the time to, do all the estimating and bid that out. Well, if we get another project that's very similar, I don't want to go through that whole process again. I want to recycle the information I've already created to leverage that and have another successful outcome. And that's why these reports in here are very important. And that's why none of the information that you put in here is ever thrown out, because it's all important and you can utilize it for additional new projects. All right, so that is bid board. And I know that I'm flying through this, but Kyle will be able to meet with you and have more in-depth conversations. I am now going to hop into Assemble. If you're not familiar with Assemble, Assemble is our model conditioning platform, also helps with work in place tracking, which is what we're going to look at today. So in Assemble, we would hop into a project. You can see we're in this project called Francis Hall, and there are different models inside of this project. So we've essentially taken a Revit model and broken it up into the different trades, right? This is great because now I can go into the part of the project that I care about and not be overwhelmed with additional information that doesn't necessarily pertain to me. This doesn't mean that I can't see all of that information in a single space. I can if I choose to, but if I'm just focused on one type of work, one trade, I just want to hop into that. So we're going to go into the electrical model here. I'll just take 1 second to load, and it's going to show me the 3D model. It's also going to show me what I'm calling the inventory panel, which is essentially a breakdown of all of the different components that live inside of this model. So that's what you're seeing on the left-hand side, where it says group by category. These are the different electrical components that live in this model, and they're grouped by that, right? They're grouped by the category. On the right-hand side, I see my 3D model. So I can use my mouse and scroll around. And again, I'm not seeing the walls. I'm not seeing any of the mechanical or plumbing components. I am just seeing electrical. If I want to also look at 2D, sometimes, we're kind of moving to a 3D space, but some folks are still more comfortable in a 2D space. That is just fine too. We can turn on 2D, and that's going to show me all of my sheets down here too. All of this information is interconnected. What I mean by that is if I scroll into one of these panels here, I click it, it lights up for me in the inventory panel. So I can see, okay, this is a lighting and appliance panel board. I can get the information about it that I need, right? If I want to add additional information to this column breakout, I can come in here and add additional columns to see more information. But what else happens is down here in 2D, right? I've selected this panel board, I can go into selected sheets, and it's going to show me exactly what sheet that panel lives on. So I can click into that sheet. And once that opens and I scroll in here, it's actually highlighted for me too. So I can see exactly where that lives on a 2D plan too, which is incredibly helpful. So again, if I'm more comfortable with 2D, I can see what it looks like in 3D and vice versa. So everything is interconnected, and that's very, very powerful. So I'm going to close out of sheets here, and we'll just look at a side-by-side of 3D and the inventory panel. The next thing I want to talk about are the types of properties that live in Assemble. So we have our model properties, which are essentially the metadata that are being pulled in from a Revit model, but we also have Assemble properties. Assemble properties are how we condition the model, how we add additional attributes to the model, things like bid packages, installation tracking, cost codes, right? Things that are actually helping us manage the project itself. So if I go back into the column space here, we see that I have my Assemble properties. And if I scroll down here, I've got my model properties. I can't delete model properties. Again, these are the metadata coming in from the 3D space, right? Coming in from my design authoring licensure model. I can't edit those, but I can pull those into the column, right? Into the inventory panel if those are things that I care about. What I can change are the Assemble properties. So if I want to put the finish date in here, if I want to put any issues or comments in here, the location, and I can sort and filter by all of these things. So these are really awesome to have. Okay, so I'm going to cancel out of that. The next thing that I want to take a look at are just individual properties for each of these components. So again, if I click on a component here, the Assemble properties are going to pop up open for me. We can umbrella these. So you might come into a new project and say, here are 30 Assemble properties that we want to add into this project. And once you do that, those will show up for each of the components in here. Then you can come through and you can either in a mass way give them, umbrella properties, or you can come into each individual component and say, okay, the installation status of this is not installed, right? You could do that in a mass effort or an individual effort. But again, this is how we see the assemble properties as well as the model properties. So what are the actual constraints and characteristics of this specific cable tray? Okay, so let's hop out of that. One other thing that I want to show you before we look at work in place tracking is our model tree. So I mentioned that right now we're just looking at our electrical components inside of this Francis Hall building, right? But if I want to look at electrical next to mechanical, next to plumbing, to make sure that we're all kind of progressing, together, I can do that. I can turn these on, and those components from those models would populate in here, as well as their components would populate in the inventory panel. So just know that you can do that. But I think that for some kind of initial work and to just really dig into what you are focused on, it can be very helpful to just look at your model. Okay, last thing I want to show you before work in place tracking is creating a rule. So right now we have all of this information in here. There's a lot of components to look at. It can still be overwhelming. I want to grab everything and I want to change the visibility. I'm going to do what we call creating a rule, which basically means that I want to shut off everything except the type of component that I care about. So I might say all I want to see are lighting fixtures. And I could add additional things. I might just break this down into like 5 different components I want to look at, right? I can add as many as I want to. And I could get more granular. I could say that are on the first floor or that are in XYZ room. I could get as specific as I want to, but let's just stay with this pretty surface level example. So I just want to see the lighting fixtures. I can go ahead and update that. Everything that's not a lighting fixture has disappeared. I didn't delete it, but it's just not here. So now I can really hone into exactly what I want to see. If I want to move away from this rule, I want to start looking at everything again, I can simply X out of that, update again, and my whole model and my inventory panel comes back. Okay. All right. So last thing is work in place tracking. I've got my 3D model. I have my inventory panel. I'm going to grab everything and I'm going to go into properties here. And I'm going to go into assemble properties, the installation status. So let's say we're in the field. I'm on my iPad. I can do all of this on my iPad. So just pretend that this is an iPad. I've grabbed everything. First day of construction. We're out there. Nothing has been installed yet. I'm grabbing everything and I'm changing the installation status to not installed. Nothing has been installed yet. And I'm going to go ahead and save that. Okay, so now everything is not installed. I am going to now go into group this by installation status because that's what I care about right now. I'm only focused on what's been installed versus what hasn't. I'm doing my work in place tracking, changing my installation status. So everything is not installed, right? Everything has that attribute. If I saw an installed in there, then that would tell me that I had missed selecting a component, but I have selected all components and they all correlate with being not installed. Now I'm going to go to this paintbrush function over here. And this is our color by property, or you might hear we're colorizing things. I'm going to turn this on and I need to change how I'm colorizing things to be the exact same grouping as over here, right? So I'm going to go into installation status again. So now I am grouping by installation status and I am colorizing by installation status. So if I've done this right, everything in here is red because it's not installed. Okay. Now, when I'm in the field on my iPad, I can do this a little bit differently. I could drag or if I had a touch screen, I could drop my finger on my screen and I could grab a ton of components, right? And select them and change their properties all at one time, right? I could update their properties to be installed. On my computer, I'm just going to do this individually. I'm going to click a couple of components, but let's say I'm in the field. We've just installed this. All of this has been installed right now. I can go to the properties and I can change the property to installed. Now, this turns green. And if I look in my inventory panel, I have installed and not installed. So I am slowly building out all of the work that I have to do, right? I can grab something else. Again, on your iPad, you're going to grab a lot of stuff at one time. You might, at the end of the day, just say, okay, we did this whole area and grab all of it and update the installation status at one time. But now that's installed, right? And so if I go and look at my inventory panel, maybe expand that a little bit. I can see, okay, 2 things have been installed. Here is the count of things that have yet to be installed, right? I've got 1,400 components that have not been installed yet. And again, if I want to go back into columns and pull out more categories, more properties to look at them in the inventory panel, I can do that too. So, what's the length of conduit that I've installed, right? That's the type of information that we can find out. We can break this information down too. So what has been installed on what floor? Okay, so on level 1, I've had this transformer and this junction box have been installed. If these are if this was conduit, I can continue to break it down to get the item number, to get the length, to get all of the characteristics of that piece of conduit. So you really can build this out to be as complex as you want to. But again, we would mostly do work in place tracking on our iPad or our mobile device in the field, and we could do it in a mass effort, but it is incredibly helpful to understanding what you have done versus what has yet to go. And if you were to turn on the model tree and look at mechanical and plumbing together, and they were also utilizing work in place tracking, it is a fantastic way to make sure that you are working in sync with the rest of the folks that are on the project with you. Okay, from that, Kyle, I will stop sharing and I will let you reshare.
All right. Wow, Lisa, that was a lot of great information that you just shared there. I mean, a lot of great information. It's amazing what we're able to do. I mean, I love seeing the Bid Board Pro. That's amazing to be able to track your bids like that, and then also to be able to really look at and analyze your hit rates. Being able to do that based on the companies that you're bidding projects to, and also being able to look at the resources from your team that are working on specific projects and kind of what their win rates are as well. But then, man, being able to condition the models in that way and being able to visually track your work in place installations through Assemble, that's just amazing. And being able to do that in mass, like you were showing there, that's truly powerful. And as Lisa mentioned earlier, these are our solutions that we can work with the Autodesk Construction Solutions team to provide. And so if you do have any additional questions or would, prefer to take a deeper dive and have a deeper conversation around BidBoard Pro or Assemble, please feel free to reach out to us here at ATG, and we'll be happy to get that conversation going with our counterparts on the Autodesk Construction Solutions team. So moving forward here, we're just going to start to kind of wrap things up and, really want to talk about the primary differentiators with the Autodesk Construction Cloud. So Lisa, I'm going to turn it over to you for that.
Yes. So if you can click through all 4 of
There we
those.
go.
So what makes the Autodesk Construction Cloud different is that we have unified data, right? When Kyle is talking about, the first 3 reasons to look at ACC, it's because we're working off of the same space. So as you move through the project lifecycle, you're not having to recreate all of these different projects, and you're not losing data along the way. In my time as an engineer and as I worked at Autodesk, I've been a technical solutions executive with our global named accounts. I've done a lot of workflow planning and process overviewing. When we move from one phase of the project to the next, we lose a ton of data. We take 20 steps backwards. It's very costly, not just in terms of budget, but also in schedule. So having that unified place is incredibly important to continuous progression and good outcomes. We also have business insights. So when you're working in one space, just like I was showing in BidBoard, right? We're working all in one space. I can analyze previous bids and how we performed. And did we submit 20 bids to this one general contractor and we've not yet won? That's an insight that's very powerful that we don't get by working in siloed spaces, or we don't get from working in manual or spreadsheets, right? I want to understand if our project, whether we're bidding or we're actively working on it, is progressing in the right way. And the only way that I can get that is by working in a collaborative, unified environment. We're also enterprise grade. So you can work in, we can create templates. You can, build out a type of project and continuously use it for all of your different projects, right? We can tweak things. We can look at an account overview, right? So how is your organization performing as a whole versus how is this group going and how is this group going? So you have a more holistic view into how your organization is performing and what your projects are like. And then pervasive simplicity. So Assemble is a little bit more technical, right? But everything else that we looked at today, simplicity is very much in the forefront of Autodesk's mind, because we want our platform to be something that people pick up and say, this is helpful, not, oh my gosh, this is just another thing that I have to figure out and I don't want to use this. And I mean, going back 10 years when I started, or when I was working as an engineer, I very much remember seeing a lot of iPads like on the ground on a construction site with like a boot stamp on them, because people were just refusing to use iPads. That is because technology has been difficult. But if we present something that is very easy to just pick up and get going with, and you start to see results very fast, people are going to want to use it and adopt it, and your project outcomes are going to be that much better. So it's very, very, very important to us that we present solutions that are easy to use and want to be used.
That's absolutely right, Lisa, without a doubt. So with that, let us know if you have any questions. Definitely feel free to utilize that Q&A box down there in the Zoom meeting chat. We had a great question come in earlier from Chris. And Chris, I know that Lisa was able to provide you with an answer on there. And if you'd like to talk a little bit more about that bridge feature within Build as it stands right now, I'll be happy to show that to you. And just keep in mind that Autodesk Bridge functionality is continuing to be developed to really help us to push more of that important project data between different projects that are hosted within the Autodesk Construction Cloud environment, possibly even by different firms as well. So, but if there are any other questions, please feel free to type those into the chat, and we'll give it just another couple of minutes to see if we have any questions that come in. And if not, we'll give you back a couple of minutes in your day here on Wednesday. And again, thank you all for joining us today. And Lisa, thank you so much for all of the great information that you're able to provide as well.
Of course. Thanks for letting me demo.
No, that was great. That was great. All right. Well, it doesn't look like we have any new questions coming in to the Q&A or to the chat. So with that, everyone, thank you again for joining us on today's webinar. We really do appreciate your time. We know that it's very valuable. We know that you're very busy people. So again, we will be sending out a link to the recording of this webinar, but that typically takes a few days for our marketing team to get that processed and get it hosted onto YouTube. So we'll get that out as soon as possible. But if you do have any questions in the meantime, please don't hesitate to reach out to your respective sales representative at ATG, or feel free to reach out over email to sales@atgusa.com, and we'll definitely get that routed to the appropriate account executive. And if we need to have a deeper conversation and possibly a demo, we can set that up for you as well. So again, thank you all for joining us today, and have a great rest of your afternoon.